Welcome to the Sleuth Intuition YouTube channel. Sit back, relax and chillax for a few.
Just take it easy, man. You know, that's your answer for everything, dude. Now just go, oh. What? Do it, man.
Don't be a scrub.
No scrubs.
Hit the thumbs up. Welcome to the Sleuth Intuition YouTube channel. Sit back, relax and chillax for a few.
Just take it easy, man. You know, that's your answer for everything, dude. Now just go, oh. What? Do it, man.
What is up? Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I didn't really test my microphone. kind of forgot. Well, anyway, today we are going to be asking the question, is snuff a morbid fantasy, or is this something that becomes a nightmare reality for people? First thing I think of when I hear snuff, I think of the movie 8mm, that old Nick Cage flick. And I guess it's argued on one end that it's just something that's made up, it's a marketing ploy. And then on the other end, in the true crime community, we know just by the stories that we cover and the things that we hear that it's very, it seems to be something that's more real than fake. Doesn't mean it happens often. But Jeff Lebowski, you brought up a good point about, you said there was some police activity going on at the bridge last night. Do you have any updates on that? Any details? Were there charges filed? Did anybody get in trouble? I think I saw something on Facebook briefly, but I think I just overlooked it because I thought it was referring to an older incident. Pretty much the same thing happened where the police were called. People were trespassing. They were held on the property, and law enforcement was called. You say it's both? Yeah, I guess you're right. It is both. But I mean, there's some people that'll say it just doesn't exist, Well, if you're like me and you think of the movie 8mm, there's some rich guy somewhere who has the money to make anything happen. But we all know that that's not the case always. We know so much now about people who use catfish techniques. Take Darren Schilmiller, for example. He didn't have to have a whole bunch of money. He just had to make a bunch of people think that he did or believe that he had a whole bunch of money. So if he could convince them he was extremely wealthy and willing to pay, it didn't even have to be real for him. He just had to convince others. And then we have to break down exactly what is a snuff film. Is that just a murder caught on film? Is it a film that's made specifically to capture a murder on film? To me, that's the definition. You murdered for the sake of capturing it on film, whether it's for monetary gain or not. Most cases, yes, it is. What's up, Marie? $6.25. I thought their address was like 5 something. Oh, William Bowers, Luke Magnotta. Yep. I got a bunch of stuff on him for tonight's live. So we're going to cover him as much as possible. We have about 8 different stories, some random stuff. What's up, Mix Mom? How are you? Yeah, and I tried to grab some of those photos, but I think I'm gonna have to go to BW's Facebook if he still has it open. I think he posted something on there. I meant to grab those. I just want to know what the private drive looks like. I mean, how hard is it to get around? Or do they keep it locked? Because I keep hearing that you could just go right around it if you wanted to. Yeah, it seems like you have two possibilities. You have a customer where money talks. Then you have the customer where manipulation, catfishing, ruses work. Yeah, and we're going to talk about that Lakeside. And the only reason we're going to speak on that in regards to Delphi is what Garrett Kurtz said. What he said during an interview with Open Secrets. So we'll touch on that a little bit, probably at the end. But first, let's take a look at this here. Now, this is a story. I think I got this from TMZ, if I'm not mistaken. Dan Aykroyd became the focus of a homicide investigation when a landfill worker uncovered film of the actor standing over a bloody corpse. And it turns out he's guilty of making a really bad movie. Law enforcement officials in Calgary, Canada tell TMZ the dump worker found the damaged film on Wednesday afternoon and turned it into police, thinking he had stumbled upon evidence of a murder. Yeah, that does look pretty gruesome. You see something sticking in his belly right here. That doesn't really look like Dan Aykroyd. That's crazy. Now, here's the actual movie. Pulled a little clip. Shoot, that's got to be worth some money now. No way around it. They left it open. Girls went through. Then closed the gate. Wouldn't let them leave. Damn. This reminds me of a conversation I had with Anna Williams. Man, she really put me in my place this one time. I think I messaged her on Facebook or something when she was part of a group, and I was like, "Did you hear about this old story?" And she was like, "Well," and she kind of was right. Like she really did put me in my place. She said, "Well, they shouldn't have been on his property." And she said something else like, you guys, you YouTube guys, you're always just wanting to confirm that you're right, about what you're saying. She's like, but in all honesty, they're lucky that's all that happened, trespassing. And I was like, damn, so right. So there's like two sides to every coin, you know what I mean? It's private drive. And what I seen on Facebook was images of like all of these do not trespass and all these signs, you know what I mean? Like don't enter. So, but at the same time, that makes you wonder, like, that bridge is like a direct path into their protected, area. All those signs that they have up that they don't want you to trespass. Well, that bridge is a direct, walkway for the public into their backyard, so to speak. That could, that I've never really been suspicious of BW. But I mean, when you think about Occam's razor and that kind of stuff, yeah, I mean, for sure. Makes sense, you're in my backyard, sick of this shit. Maybe I've been drinking all morning, out fishing, maybe. That was always my first like profile. Somebody more than familiar with the area, something they did on a daily basis. They would know how to cut you off. They would know where to kind of corral you. They would know where they could go, maybe without being seen. So, yeah, it's very. But you got to give law enforcement some credit. I'm sure they saw that angle as well. I mean, I hope. Okay, now this is kind of an old school story here. I don't know how many Nine Inch Nails fans we got watching right now. This article is pretty specific to Trent Reznor. And it's kind of strange because when law enforcement got their hands on part of this music video, they were investigating it as a potential snuff film. Yes, good point, Pam. And the staging, I know staging used in that sense is to kind of like mislead or, throw people off, but also staging could also just mean like moving stuff around for purposes. I mean, listen to the word stage. What do you do on a stage? You film it, you watch it, you observe it. They're putting the stage almost as if they wanted to film it, I guess, or memorialize it. All right, let's get into this article. I feel like I'm about to start sneezing. In light of the 25th anniversary of Pretty Hate Machine, we turn the clock back to 1989 with Trent Reznor. Unbeknownst to him, was the focus of a nationwide FBI investigation. Note, this article was originally published in 2013 prior to the release of Hesitation Marks. 1 month before Nine Inch Nails released their critically acclaimed 1989 debut album, Pretty Hate Machine, Trent Reznor and co. made their way to Chicago to film a music video for its lead single, Down in It. The premise was simple enough. A man played by Reznor climbed to the top of a tall building only to slip and fall to his death. The videos end with Nine Inch Nails members Richard Patrick, Chris Vrenna discovering Reznor's dead body days later to create the illusion of decay. Reznor covered in cornstarch and cameras tied to balloons filmed overhead views before drones. However, one of these cameras ended up breaking away during shooting and drifted all the way to Michigan, where it was discovered by a farmer. Upon seeing its gory contents, he called the police and then called the FBI, who then launched a nationwide investigation under the assumption that the man featured in the video was actually dead and what they were watching was a snuff film. So it's kind of like this is how the rumors get started, you know? Crazy situations like this. Hey, what's up, Radar? How you doing? What's up, everybody? The Sketch Man. Well, let me load up that video. I think I took a little clip of the actual Nine Inch Nails video that they're referring to. So they saw this and they were like, what the hell? It's a damn snuff video. So they tied balloons to the cameras, and one of them just took the camera, you know, took it for a ride. Frank's going live tonight. Now, this next story is about a man named Nikolai Mork. So I'm going to start here with this article. It has all the basic information.
MIT graduate arrested on terrorism charges had violent child pornography and snuff films on his computer, authorities say. An MIT graduate arrested Wednesday in Las Vegas on terrorism charges had violent child pornography and snuff films on his computer, authorities say. Nikolai Mork was already fighting explosives and firearms charges from December when he was taken into custody at one of his southern Las Vegas homes on Wednesday. Before the arrest, police evacuated residents from nearby homes as a precaution. Mork, 40, had been free on bail the last 3 months after he was arrested on charges that he illegally possessed explosives, a silencer and a gun with a serial number removed. He was busted again late Wednesday on counts of terrorism and possession of weapons of mass destruction. The manner in which this individual was using these materials was not for legal purposes, Deputy Las Vegas Police Chief Chris Jones said. These substances could be used in the manufacture of powerful explosive devices. The more you use, the larger the device, the more destructive it's going to be. Chief Deputy Clark County DA Jacob Villani said the chemicals were powerful enough to damage a military tank, according to the Las Vegas Review-Journal. The investigation came about after several explosions took place in 2 neighborhoods where Mork lived. Devices had either exploded or were found unexploded, Jones said. They clearly were not being used for legal purposes. In addition, investigators found disturbing material on his computer, including violent child pornography, snuff films, and images. Jones said. They clearly were not being used for legal purposes. In addition, investigators found disturbing material on his computer, including violent child pornography, snuff films, and images of having sexual relations with seemingly unconscious women, according to the Review-Journal. Authorities also uncovered video on the computer of Mork violently beating a woman, according to the newspaper. The woman had been found unconscious in the lobby of Mork's building. Mork has yet to be charged with crimes relating to the content on the computer. They're still trying to image that drive, prosecutor Jake Villani told the Review-Journal. This was just a triage approach to that drive. He knows what he's doing, an extreme danger to the community. His crimes are running the gambit at this point, and we're just trying to get a hold of what exactly we're looking at here. The Daily News Flash. Mork's mother told the Review-Journal from Minnesota that she noticed some peculiar behavior from her son when he visited his parents 2 years ago. He had been taking medication for depression. He was anxious, Joan Mork told the newspaper. He was pacing all the time. Sometimes he sat down and put his arms around us, and those are moments that meant a lot. Our hearts are crushed. Joan Mork told the Review-Journal that her son said he was concerned that members of the church Scientology were following him into restaurants and eavesdropping. Mork's lawyer Nicholas Woolridge expressed shock at the new terrorism charges against his client and the $8 million bail amount set by a judge. The lawyer said Mork legally possessed materials commonly used for targets that can explode when shot during firearms target practice. Woolridge also said similar devices are commercially available and not prohibited under federal law. Mork was valedictorian at Pomona College in California, according to the Review-Journal, and had a master's in business administration from MIT. With Newswire Services.
So the dude was like really smart. I think he was just off his medication or something. I think I found, yeah, I did. His mom kind of talks about.
Officers are scouring this man's house.
I'll let it speak for itself. Let's take a look.
Officers are scouring this man's house. Tonight, Nikolai Mork is facing terrorism charges accused of planning to blow up various sites around Las Vegas.
Tonight, 13 Action News is digging deeper into the MIT grad's background. His mother talking only to our crews.
13 Action News anchor Christopher King is live near Maryland Parkway and Silverado Ranch with the latest on what's happening there. Christopher.
Trisha, Steve, take a look at this home behind me. Police have been out here more than 5 hours. They say the man who lives here had enough dangerous chemicals that could be used to make bombs. Now, his mom tells us her son may have been dealing with mental health issues.
I just can't say enough about what a fine young man he was.
Joan Mork paints a different picture than the one illustrated by law enforcement. The DA's office says Nikolai Mork had bomb-making materials inside his home. They say he was plotting to blow up various sites, including this NV Energy transformer.
We experienced our son as a large-hearted, brilliant, tender person.
According to an indictment, Mork had large amounts of thermite, ammonium nitrate, and other dangerous chemicals. The DA says Mork, an MIT grad, intended to use them to make bombs. His mom, speaking to us on the phone from Minnesota, struggles to make sense of it all.
I believe that he had at some turning point that we don't really understand.
Joan Mork tells us her son has been wrestling with mental health issues. She believes his problems may have begun when he started taking a drug for ADHD.
We thought it started perhaps when he was given a medication called Adderall.
Very scary.
Police SWAT team surrounded Nikolai Mork's home. Ricky Smith lives around the corner. Smith, a mom of 3, could see the commotion from her backyard.
It's unsettling having to explain to the kids, can't go outside, there's stuff going on.
Nikolai Mork is charged with terrorism, possessing bomb-making materials, and a weapons offense, and we will stay on top of this developing story. We're live. Christopher King, 13 Action News.
Wow. So that is Nikolai Mork. Very interesting character. Now, do you guys remember a story about a woman named Kim Wall and a man named Peter Madsen? See if that helps. Okay, Peter Madsen, a Danish inventor and submariner, is currently on trial for the dismemberment and the murder of a Swedish journalist, Kim Wall. Some potentially damning testimony includes a witness that said Madsen expressed interest in snuff films before Wall's death. The headless torso of 31-year-old Kim Wall was discovered last summer off Copenhagen. She had taken a ride with Peter Madsen on a Nautilus submarine he built. He was writing a story about Madsen, now 47, and his vessel. Excuse me, I had to sneeze there. Now, an unidentified female witness said that Madsen had spoken about wanting to make a snuff video on his vessel just days before the death of Wall. According to the Danish publication Doctor, on Monday, day 5 of the trial, the witness, referred to only as the mistress, testified that he had a sexual relationship with the submariner. She said that Madsen and friend exchanged texts in which he expressed that she was the alleged target of a snuff film he wanted to make. Another witness, an Australian filmmaker, testified that Madsen told her that he believes he may be a psychopath. Yet another witness, a male acquaintance of Madsen, told the court that Madsen showed him a video of a person being strangled with a wire. It made the acquaintance throw up, according to his testimony. So that makes you wonder if that's what's going on here. If there's a video rolling around. Now, this story is about a man named Brian Smith, and interesting enough, it's coming out of Anchorage, Alaska. All right. Smith, who is from South Africa, was arrested in Henry's death after a person found an SD card in Anchorage, Fairview neighborhood September 30th that contained videos that appeared to show the murder of a woman, police said. That memory card led police to arrest Smith as he arrived at Ted Stevens International Airport on October 3rd, in part because police recognized that his accent from a separate investigation, officials have said. The SD card was titled Homicide at the Midtown Marriott, according to charging documents reported by NBC affiliate KTUU of Anchorage. The killing is believed to have occurred at the Marriott Hotel September 4th, the law department has said. Video on the card showed a woman being strangled and a man telling her to die, the Associated Press has reported. Dahl said the police are continuing to investigate the case. We will look at every single aspect of the case and, if necessary, follow it wherever we need to, he said Thursday. Smith had been indicted on charges that included murder, sexual assault and tampering with evidence in the death of Henry, and a specification of torture was made that could lead to a mandatory minimum sentence of 99 years if he's convicted, Dunlap said. A grand jury added charges of murder and tampering with evidence in the killing of Aykroyd, and the state also filed a charge of misconduct involving a corpse, he said. Smith is expected to be arraigned on the charges stemming from Aykryd's killing Monday. So I actually found a couple videos on this guy. They might help explain the story just a little better. What's up, Frank?
Your Honor, we've reviewed it. We waive further reading advisement, enter pleas of not guilty.
Not guilty plea is entered.
Brian Smith returned to court on Wednesday facing 7 new charges after a grand jury reviewed the evidence, along with a decision of the severity of his actions.
In this case, the aggravator is that the defendant subjected the victim to substantial physical torture. So we asked the grand jury to make that finding.
In addition to 1 count of murder in the death of 30-year-old Alaska native Kathleen Henry, the 48-year-old immigrant from South Africa now faces 2 counts of second-degree murder, 2 counts of second-degree sexual assault, and 2 counts of tampering with evidence.
Trial scheduling December 16th.
For now, Smith awaits trial.
On 5 days to object, and bail remains as set.
Still being held on a combined $750,000 cash bond.
Another victim, Brian Smith, is now charged with the murders of 2 Alaska Native women.
KTVA 11's Daniela Rivera joining us now with what we know about the second woman's death. Daniela.
Well, 53-year-old Veronica Abaychuk was reported missing in July, more than a year after her family last saw her. Months earlier, police say her unidentified remains, a skull with a gunshot wound, had been found. Now we're learning Smith allegedly told police that he shot and killed her. In death, they rested alone until their remains were discovered along Anchorage highways. Now, officials believe 30-year-old Kathleen Henry and 53-year-old Veronica Abaychuk, likely killed a year or more apart, shared the same fate. The last face they saw is believed to be 48-year-old Brian Stephen Smith's, an immigrant from South Africa who became a U.S. citizen just last month.
Enter pleas of not guilty.
According to court documents, he's confessed to both of the killings. In a news conference today, Anchorage's deputy district attorney announced a grand jury has indicted Smith on a total of 13 felony charges for both killings. Charges of murder, sexual assault, evidence tampering, along with a misdemeanor charge of misconduct involving a corpse.
some closure to folks for their missing loved ones.
In a memo requesting Smith be held on a $2 million cash bail, prosecutors wrote, he poses a significant public safety risk, especially to the vulnerable homeless women currently living on the streets of Anchorage.
These were 2 Alaska Native women, and I know that hits home here in Alaska, and we're cognizant of that.
Police say the investigation into the extent of Smith's alleged crimes is ongoing.
Anytime APD has a complex case, we always look into it in a way to connect it to any other cases if evidence suggests that it might be.
As Alaskans following the case can't help but wonder if there are others waiting to be found. The state is asking that Smith's bail be increased to $2 million cash. He is expected to appear in court Monday for a bail hearing. Joe.
All right, Daniela, thank you.
So I guess this guy was making his own snuff. I wonder what was he doing with it? By definition, is that snuff, right? Kind of like the arsonists when they filmed their fires. I mean, well, I guess, does it have to be for monetary gain? Is that a specification? Well, in one of the cases we're going to cover, Radar, they actually give a $10,000 reward for a video that they believe is out there. They actually had multiple witnesses that came forward and said, hey, we saw the video. We're too afraid, the video was made to scare us. So it's a story about a sex trafficker. In order to keep all the girls in line, he makes an example out of one of them, creating a snuff film, showing it to all of them, and it made national headlines. So we're going to look into that here in just a few moments. Yeah, Lakeside, he's definitely a psycho. I was going to include some stuff about Larry Eiler too, because I know Snuff is part of his story, but I just kind of ran out of time. I might do a part 2 if I think we need to, but I think I got everything I wanted to cover here. This next story is actually about a woman named Georgia Williams. And her killer was actually basically arrested and charged with assault for confining somebody in his home, and also, I believe, attacking this person either, I think, with strangulation. And they just let him off. I think he got like probation or something. Let's take a listen here.
Ago, her parents said they knew how it felt to be truly broken-hearted. James Reynolds befriended the 17-year-old and asked her to his house for a photo shoot, then hanged her in a carefully planned trap. Now a serious case review has found Reynolds had attacked before, but West Mercia police failed to act. Georgia's dad is a detective with the same force. He said he cried when he read the scathing report.
These officers in here shouldn't sleep at nights because they let Georgia down.
Their failings led to our daughter being killed by Reynolds. They killed Georgia by not dealing with him properly, and they should accept some consequences for that.
In 2008, Reynolds tried to strangle a 16-year-old girl at his home and was arrested for assault. Soon after, his stepfather told police he'd viewed images online of naked women being strangled, and he had photos of girls he knew with nooses drawn around their necks. He got a written warning and an offer of counselling. 3 years later, after a woman rejected his advances, he reversed his car into hers. Police didn't link the incidents. And the girls whose photos he had, like Jadine Dunning, weren't told. She was a former classmate of Reynolds and a friend of Georgia's.
I beat myself up with the what ifs. What if I had known? What if I could have warned her? Would she still be here now? And I genuinely believe that she would. What if he'd have killed me? And you can't help, no one will know the answers to those questions, and that's why the what ifs become so hard. They said that they did everything feasible to protect me from harm, but from where I'm sitting, nothing at all was done.
And so, this apology from police.
We did get this wrong. We let them down, and I profoundly and wholeheartedly apologise to them. But we can't bring them back. But if there's any good is going to come from this, is that we work with Stephen and Annette to do everything we can to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
James Reynolds is serving a whole life sentence. He won't ever get out of jail or harm another person. But for everyone who mourns Georgia Williams, there will always be the question, could her death have been prevented?
Wow. Another sad story. I mean, it's just a sad fact. A lot of law enforcement is just reactive, you know. You call them after the fact. But when somebody tries to strangle and kidnap somebody and confine them, I mean, that's more than a red flag. Need some type of monitoring. Like minimum 15 years, like you're going to be monitored now from this point on. Because let's say 2 years go by, everything seems normal. He gets a new neighbor with a young child. Boom. That's when he decides to do something extremely horrible. Now, this next story, I could have easily did about pulled 10 videos on this next character. But this one seems to cover it all. His name is going to be Darren Schilmiller. He's actually out of Indiana. Now, this is the guy who convinced people over in Alaska that he had a whole bunch of money and that he actually convinced them to produce child porn first, and then he may have even used that to sextort them at a certain point. But he basically promised about $9 million for them to kill a target, film it, and then also have him on the phone while it happens. So here's that story.
Mastermind the murder of a young woman way up in Anchorage, Alaska. Friday, a grand jury indicted Darren Schilmiller in the death of Cynthia Hoffman, including murder and solicitation to commit murder. We first told you about Schilmiller's arrest last Thursday after prosecutors arrested the Southern Indiana man on child porn charges. Wave 3 News Southern Indiana reporter Rachel Krause has been following the story. So, Rachel, investigators say Schilmiller had been catfishing one of the women accused in the murder.
Charging documents say Denali Bramer in Alaska thought she was talking to a man named Tyler from Kansas, sending her a photo of another man and convincing her he was a millionaire. During that relationship online, they began planning to rape and murder someone. Court records say he offered Bramer $9 million to carry out the murder and have photos and videos of it sent to him. Court records tell a story you'd expect to find in a movie or crime novel. An Indiana man accused of catfishing a woman in Alaska, now indicted by a grand jury for murder after convincing her he'd pay millions for her to murder someone and send him photos. 21-year-old Darren Schilmiller has been arrested on these and other charges. Schilmiller is from New Salisbury, a small town in Harrison County. He attended North Harrison High School in Ramsey, graduating in 2017. Just 2 years later, the Alaska Department of Law says Schilmiller convinced 18-year-old Denali Bramer, the woman he was having a relationship with online, to commit a murder. Court records say she then enlisted 4 friends, 19-year-old Caleb Leyland, 16-year-old Caden McIntosh, and 2 juveniles, telling them they would receive substantial shares of money for their part of the planning and execution of the murder. Cynthia Hoffman, Bramer's best friend, was selected to be the murder victim. Court records say June 2nd, they carried out the plan, taking Hoffman on a hike, binding her hands, feet, and head with duct tape before shooting her in the back of the head and putting her body in a river. Court records say Bramer was talking with Schilmiller the entire time, sending him Snapchat photographs and videos of Hoffman tied up and of the body afterward. Court records say Schilmiller told investigators he and Bramer talked about murdering someone else after Hoffman, and that he blackmailed Bramer into raping people. Schilmiller was originally arrested and charged with production and receipt of child pornography when investigators found child porn on Bramer's phone that she'd sent to him. Friday, a grand jury indicted Schilmiller and 5 others in Hoffman's murder. He's now awaiting extradition to Alaska. Schilmiller is charged with Bramer and 4 others for their role in the murder of Cynthia Hoffman. If convicted, he could face 99 years in prison for each charge. Our affiliate in Anchorage, KTUU, reports that the other defendants with Schilmiller in the case will be arraigned together on Tuesday. Rachel Krause, Wave 3 News.
Now, talk about a horrible case. Schilmiller, man. That guy was treacherous. If he had money and power, imagine the things he'd be doing. He'd be getting away with it too. But the interesting thing about Schilmiller, he comes out of Indiana, and with us having insight into the story, knowing who did it, it's almost like it's telling the same story of the Delphi girls, potentially. You know, it kind of plays out in the same scenario. You know, they go out for a hike, they're taken to a specific location, there's no real fight, and then they're duct taped and tricked, and maybe that's why there was no sign of a struggle. So to me, it kind of explains a lot of things if that scenario was correct in that case. Marie, that's awful. Welcome. So you have the question, what is a snuff film? Okay, now these guys were going to kill or did kill this young lady expecting exchange of cash. So now by definition, that's got to be a snuff film. But the part that's strange about it is this Schilmiller guy had no money. He was just that convincing. He got his hands on the perfect victims. I mean, these people were willing to do anything. They were molesting their own children. He's like, I got you. It's insane. That story is absolutely insane. The next case we're going to look at is the case of Karina Saunders. I believe this is out of Oklahoma back in 2011. Now, this is the case I was referring to. Let me read this article, and then I have, I think, 4 short videos that was released to the public via local media. Once again, Karina Saunders. Very strange case. We could do 3 hours on this case alone. It's just as bad, if not worse, than the Delphi case. They captured 2 men believed to be found on video and had to let them go. This was a tough one to read. It kind of upset me for a little bit. But this coffee seems to be helping. Okay, now this article came out of People magazine. Oklahoma authorities believe the 2011 slaying of a 19-year-old whose butchered remains were found stuffed inside a duffel bag behind a grocery store may have been videotaped, and they are offering up to $10,000 to anyone who can provide the gruesome footage, People confirms. While the video's existence has never actually been verified, state investigators say people we've questioned over the course of the investigation have said they've seen the tape, which purportedly shows the final moments of Karina Saunders' life. Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Steve Tanner declined to describe the tape's alleged contents, but did tell people that several individuals questioned by police insist they have seen the video of when Karina was murdered. Tanner adds that there are others who've alluded to the tape's existence during interrogations, saying they heard about the video from friends who claim to have seen it. We really want to talk to people who have seen the tape with their own eyes, Agent Tanner says. We are wanting to determine if somebody has a copy of it, and we want them to bring it to us so that we can determine who was involved in the killing. Saunders was reported missing by her mother on September 28th of 2011. Her dismembered body was found 2 weeks later in Bethany, Oklahoma. No motive has ever been publicly discussed. Investigators believe Saunders was last seen alive on October 8, 2011, when she got inside a red dual-cab pickup truck at the Newcastle Casino about 30 minutes from where her body was later found, Tanner says. A man seen getting out of the truck had tattoo sleeves on both of his arms. Agents are trying to identify that man as well as a group of women who begged Saunders not to leave in the truck that night. Wow, that's scary. So it seems like they knew what was going to happen. And then once it happened, it shut them all up. All right. So like I said, I have a few videos, some news reports here that I pulled on this case here, Karina Saunders. It's a tough one.
A gruesome murder. A young woman's body found dismembered in a duffel bag.
It happened back in 2011, but whomever killed Karina Saunders is still out there and only on 5. The investigation and wait for justice.
That's one wound that will never heal. It'll be an open wound the rest of my life.
Not a day goes by that Karina Saunders' parents don't think about their daughter.
She just brought a lot of joy. She brought a lot of joy to you.
A young woman they describe as a bright light who at 19 years old was trying to find her way and had just given her life to God when the unthinkable occurred.
Bags were found with human remains.
Karina's
different
body
Karina.
found
This is
stuffed
an older
in a duffel
story.
bag and dumped near a grocery store. Local, state, and federal agents all involved in the case.
Whoever did this went through a great deal of effort and time to dismember a body. So it sent a message to somebody. We don't know who that somebody is.
The Oklahoma State Bureau of Investigation eventually took over nearly 5 years later.
The case is very active right now.
OSBI says they get leads every week.
And we have several things that we're planning on coming up in the next several months.
Public Information Officer Jessica Brown won't say what, but did say they performed more than 2,000 lab tests on potential evidence.
We have been able to determine people who could not have done it. Right now we're looking at those who could have done it.
Karina's parents, Richard and Margie, say they've lived through hell on earth and cling to memories of their daughter to find some sort of peace.
It says,
Lose your pain. This is her writing. Lose your pain, lose your fear, lose your sorrow.
They ask for someone to step up with information to help put Karina's killer or killers where they belong.
We're waiting on answers, waiting on closure, waiting on justice.
And OSBI says that's exactly what they need. They need more human intelligence. Just one simple tip could be the key to cracking this case. If you have even the slightest piece of information, that's the number to call. It's 1-800-522-8017, and we'll put this number on our KOCO app as well.
See, and that's why this case right here reminded me of the Delphi case, because basically they had these guys, they didn't have a real clear image of them on the video, but they had the voice and they had kind of like some side views of their face or whatever. And they pretty much knew it was them, but they took it to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor's like, you don't have any physical evidence here. Like, there's no way you can prove that's them without, beyond a reasonable doubt. So they dropped the charges. So I'm wondering if in Delphi, there's a situation similar to this where they have a whole lot of information on a certain person, but they're lacking physical evidence or something that's just going to kind of put the stamp on it.
Cancer story.
The woman claimed she was there when Bethany teen Karina Saunders was murdered, but now her attorney claims she lied about it. KFCO's Naveen Dhaliwal is live now. Naveen?
Jessica, OSBI is now helping Bethany police in this investigation, an investigation with a lot of twists and turns. Almost 16 months have passed since Karina Saunders' dismembered body was found dumped in a field in Bethany. Police charged 2 people, Luis Ruiz and Jimmy Massey. But now a witness who claims to have been present during the killing says she wasn't there.
And ultimately came out that she was really just repeating what someone else had said.
When we asked her attorney, David Slane, why anyone would do that, he says,
sometimes people want to help the police. Sometimes they want to help an investigation. Also remember that she was in trouble herself and wanted to get out of trouble.
Slane says his client had drug charges against her. But no matter what her motivation,
I absolutely believe the facts of that story are absolutely true.
one of the facts laid out in court documents, Ruiz physically beat Karina Saunders. Then he drug her into an upstairs room and tied her to a small table, all before cutting off her left foot with a saw. Details that now OSBI will be looking at as they start their part in this case.
We're willing to put our forensic people on it, our investigators, crime scene investigators, whoever we believe we need, once we've looked at all the information and see where we can help.
And OSBI says they haven't even had a chance to look through case files yet, but they will be starting very soon. Live in the studio tonight, Naveen Dhaliwal, KOCO.
A decade after the shocking murder of her sister.
You may remember the case, still unsolved. Karina Saunders was 19 years old when her body was found dismembered and stuffed in a duffel bag behind a grocery store in Bethany.
The investigation revealed
her body was found dismembered and stuffed in a duffel bag behind a grocery store in Bethany.
The investigation revealed she'd trafficking victim, but the charges against two men arrested in her death were dismissed in 2013. And now her sister is speaking out, determined to both keep the case alive and to warn others. News 4's Lauren Daniels reports.
If I can prevent someone else from feeling the way that I have had to feel for 10 years, I will do anything I can.
It was October of 2011 when Sarah Saunders learned her younger sister Karina had been murdered.
She was a sweetheart. She was funny. She ended up with a scholarship for accounting.
Speaking to the high school cadet program at Metro Tech, Sarah described how her path took a dangerous turn.
She started smoking marijuana, and eventually that ended up not being enough for her. And she ended up doing harder drugs.
Sarah says in September of 2011, Karina got clean, but later that month, she was reported missing. Her remains were found and identified the next month.
She was kidnapped and tortured and dismembered and beheaded and left in duffel bags in Bethany, Oklahoma.
Investigators believe Karina was among a group of girls being sexually trafficked. Sarah believes she was killed for resisting.
That's when they took her and they used her as a example to the other girls that if you don't let us traffic you, this is what we're going to do.
To this day, no arrests have been made. The case going cold has only intensified the fire in Sarah's mission. As a student in Metro Tech's Basic Police Officers Academy certification program, her goal is to become a detective. Sarah also founded the Change for Change program through Oklahoma-based nonprofit No Boundaries International in an effort to help victims of human trafficking.
I'm going to make some tidal waves. That's what's going to happen. I'm on my way.
Lauren Daniels, Oklahoma's News 4.
Does a video exist of Karina Saunders' killing? The Oklahoman's Tim Willard reports documents filed Tuesday, July 10, 2012 in Oklahoma County District Court indicate Bethany police have reported they were told a video of Saunders' killing exists, but detectives have been unable to confirm its existence. That's because a woman thought to have a copy of the video didn't show up. According to a search warrant affidavit, Mindy Cottier agreed to meet with police last week, but didn't because, quote, she was scared to come forward. Willard reports it's unclear if a laptop computer, 2 zip drives, or 2 cameras recovered July 3rd from a motel where Cottier was staying contained video of the killing. Here's background on the story. Saunders' body was found dismembered and stuffed in a duffel bag behind a Homeland grocery store on October 13th of 2011. According to the affidavit, detectives have interviewed more than 80 witnesses and followed hundreds of leads and learned from various sources that a digital video recording exists of the murder of Saunders, but law enforcement has not confirmed that video. Stay with the Oklahoman and NewsOK.com for updates on this story, as well as previous articles, photos, and related videos.
Well, that is a horrible story. I still don't think that they have any justice. There's a whole segment where they bring these suspected guys into a room and they give them lie detector tests, and man, it's just really, it just seems like a whole lot of nothing. Can't do anything without anything new. Now, this next case we're going to go over is the Luka Magnotta. This case was brought to my attention by the Netflix special, Don't F with Cats. And we're going to go over some of that same information that they've made public. So I think we will start here. Yeah, Humanimal, you got to take your personal responsibility, you know, make sure you're being good. Yeah, don't fuck with cats. But really only a serial killer would ever fuck with cats. You know, the more we learn about the Dark Triad, the more we learn that that's pretty true. Oh, yeah. All right. Despite seeing psychiatrists and taking meds, Newman, by now calling himself Luka Magnotta because he wanted to feel more Italian and less like white trash, was spiraling into an abyss. In 2010, a video called One Boy, Two Kittens was spotted online. The macabre film showed a man suffocating 2 kittens to death using a plastic bag and a vacuum cleaner. The video triggered a frenzy of online detective work as animal lovers around the world joined forces on social media to work out who the homicidal sadist was. As one member of the community later said in an interview, there's this unwritten rule of the internet. It's called Rule 0, and you don't mess with cats. The amateur sleuths were eventually sent an online tip which led them to the identity Luka Magnotta, who by this time had used the power of social media to carefully conjure up a kind of A-list alternative version of himself. A mysterious fan page on YouTube featured a video montages of his photos. A poster on a Flickr page asked if it was true that Luka and River Phoenix were cousins. Rumors swirled that Luka had dated celebrities. It later turned out that Magnotta himself was posting all these gushing messages using dozens of false aliases online. He's a catfish. He's a catfishing snuffer. So viewer discretion. This doesn't really show anything, but it's still disturbing because we all know what happens. But this is the video that set the internet on fire and got him arrested, pretty much, with the online sleuths. Yeah, definitely viewer discretion advised on this one. So now the video, he proceeds to basically go through with killing these cats here by way of suffocation. And it was at that point people had to find out who this guy was. And online sleuths actually did find him. But what they found was 100 times more devastating and insane. Well, actually, it was the worst thing that they could imagine, let's just say, became a reality. Now, this is a security camera footage that was made public online of Luka Magnotta, basically after he's walking in with one of his victims, and then it shows him disposing of the contents. Okay, so I believe at this point he's already killed the guy. I think that was his victim there. Yeah, so he ends up killing that guy in this apartment here. So at this point, he's already pretty much completed the murder. This dude's just going about his day. Yeah, this guy kind of reminds me of Jeffrey Dahmer. You know, when Jeffrey Dahmer sits down and talks about his story, um, he kind of reminds me of that, luring people in. Yeah, I think at one point he comes back out and he has his hair cut, and he looks like a different person almost. And this guy has no clue. He's like, "Oh, I'm just doing my job and take out the trash." I wonder how many times this has happened to just normal people. Ophelia, those European countries are, yeah, they're pretty lenient. Right? Just dump himself in there. I mean, he just has no conscience. The radar says, imagine the stories we don't know about. As much as we do hear about, there's probably 10 times more than we don't. Yeah, exactly. Imagine the other people that he's harmed. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember that. I think he put it on the dark web or something, right? See, he looks like a different person right there. I'm pretty sure that's his apartment because he's the one that had the keys originally. Crush, I guess they're called crush films. People find sexual pleasure from watching women crush small animals. Looks like he's trying to make sure there's no evidence or identifying information, or maybe he's even looking for a trophy. Yeah, that damn Jeffrey Dahmer shit. Crazy.
Security, I'm extremely happy and extremely pleased to confirm you that the number one suspect for our 11th homicide on the Montreal territory has been arrested. He was apprehended in Berlin in Germany, and he was apprehended this morning 8 o'clock for us, 2 o'clock p.m. for the local authorities. And the reason why it's been broadcast in the media is, and we never confirmed that, we're waiting to get a 100% result of that, and this is the fingerprints that confirm his identity. Interpol have confirmed that to us less than an hour ago. So investigators are extremely happy to get this confirmation. It's been one of the largest manhunt for the Montreal Police Service, and that was a worldwide manhunt. So this is something for us. Extremely happy. I want to thank you guys. Thanks all the medias for the help that we got. Thanking everyone that's been on the web actually watching this picture. We said from the beginning the web have been used for him to glorify himself, and we believe that's the web that brought him down also. So thank you very much for your help. Tomorrow we'll expect a press conference to give you some.
Good job, team.
Since the beginning of the operation, we said that the main focus will be to arrest the suspect. Now this is done. We got all the other kind of questions surrounding that. Was there other possible crimes? The possible link between him and a very well-known person in Canada? That will be established later on.
What does it say about him that he's caught so publicly and in an internet cafe?
Yes, he was apprehended in an internet cafe. He's been apprehended this morning at 8 o'clock from the Montreal time, but 2 o'clock for the German time. He was apprehended. How it happened, what are the details, how it happened exactly. This is the kind of information we'll be sharing with you tomorrow.
What goes next for officers here as far as going over or corresponding, talking to German authorities?
That's a good question, because I said from the beginning we're extremely happy to tell you that the suspect has been apprehended, but this is far from being over. The investigation has brought us to the suspect. Now we get all kind of other questions beside that. Is there other possible homicide or other crime linked to that person? That will be investigated by our investigators, that's for sure. And after that, as you know, since he's in Germany, we'll have a lot of paperwork to do with these people to bring him back to justice in Montreal, Canada. So it's not over. Investigators are working extremely hard, but I can tell you when we learned that less than an hour ago, that we're extremely relieved of that.
How long could it take, though? How long could it take to bring him back?
That's a good question. Depends on a lot of things. It depends if he's contesting whether or not that the deportation will take place. So all kind of questions that we don't have the answer at this moment. But at least the good news now, at least the good info is that we got a suspect with us. He's in custody, and this is thanks for the help of the public, thanks for the help of different partners with Interpol. So we've been apprehended this morning, and we're really happy of this.
Internet cafe, that does sound so 90s. Late 90s, early 2000s. So I have one more short little video to show you guys. Then we can kind of open up the conversation for about 5 more minutes before we end the live stream. And this is going to be Garrett Kurtz talking to Open Secrets, and he claims that there's a video. So whatever that means, let's take a look.
Me, the Sheena Cottrell, Nick Edwards had fucking video tapes of the shit, and then she heard him talking about it, and then when I asked her about it, she's like, oh, I don't know nothing. She told me that Sheena Cottrell, Nick Edwards had fucking video tapes of the shit, and then she heard him talking about it, and then when I asked.
So, I mean, if you're trying to get a card in the game, you know, he had nothing to play, so he could have been trying to use Open Secrets or try to get some type of deal, you know. But you can't ignore the fact that what he said. Oh yeah, I read about that. That was horrible. Sheena Cottrell and Nick Edwards. Consider the source, though, a lying murderer with nothing to lose. Sadistic. It's almost like pain for them. They need to see pain in others to gain pleasure or sexual gratification. What would you consider the video of Luka along with your poll? What do you mean? I don't know. I don't know who these people are. I've seen images of people in that circle with those names and stuff like that, but I mean, who knows? I just think it's interesting that he said that. Considering what the Ron Logan affidavit, all this digital recording stuff, film, photography, like they were looking for, a lot of stuff that would pertain to recording of the crime scene in some way or the other. So for us to read that and then to hear him say that, it just makes you wonder. Oh, what? You want the results? I was going to kind of leave the results open, see what happens. I know he made that YouTube video where he was singing to a buddy of his. That's about it. Yep, he threw him out there. What about my opinion? You still haven't asked me the question. Just ask the question. Put it in the comments with a question mark after it. All right, guys. We are at the hour-and-a-half mark. That's about all I have for you today. I have something else in the works, but I just can't quite figure out how to present it yet. So once I figure that out, I'll be showing that to members first. Get your opinion. Yeah, I'll try to answer the question. Oh, here, I think this is it right here. Okay, so along with your poll, as in a snuff film, a morbid fantasy, or a nightmare, what do you think were his intentions? Oh. Well, he's basically your fantasy killer anyway. He doesn't need snuff for anything. He's just a killer. I think he just enjoys the killing part of it. The rest is like for ego. Thanks, Steve. Thanks for all your help in the chat and stuff. Hey, Pam. Of course, Deb. Thanks for hanging out, holding down the chat as well. Zooter, it was good to see you. Thank you. Thanks for coming. William, always good to see you. Later, Sketch. Donald, good to see you. Radar, hope to talk with you soon. And on that note, guys, everybody that showed up or who is catching this in a replay, I appreciate you just hanging out. If you have anything to add or potentially something we can do for a part 2, because I'm still not too sure on what exactly SNUFF is. You know, what is the exact definition of that? So maybe we will revisit this topic again. Leave some comments. Shoot me an email, sleuthintuition@gmail.com. And I'll see you soon. Later.